There we go. Because we've been generating a bunch of video content, I first want to talk about video prep. Oftentimes, these VJs and whatever, they show up with the hard drive with just files and files of video content, right? The folders and stuff. So first of all, we need to talk about a thing called codecs, how you compress your video to optimize it for VJing. VJing, we will do things not only as playing and compositing, but also you'll change speed. You'll slow things down. You'll change things and make it reverse. You'll play forward, play backwards. It needs to be done on the fly. And as we remember from doing data moshing, there's like with H.264 codec, there was only these iframes at cuts, right? These picture-perfect frames that were perfect, and then all the in-between, those P-frames, were dealing with motion vectors to try to reduce file size. But we don't care about file size, we care about fidelity and performance. So what we do is deal with codecs that give us more information, ultimately larger file sizes, but a more performative video. So another little trick I do, and I don't have enough source content to convert, is I often down res video footage. Like I wouldn't do a VJ set with 1080p footage. I'd probably maybe go 720p because people wouldn't really notice the difference. Projection is forgiving, and it's going to help with your performance considerably when you think about surface area, that when you double the size of something, it's actually quadrupling the surface area, right? So if you can then therefore half something, you're making it a fourth of the surface area, and that gives you so much more performance. So those are just kind of the guidelines I deal with. But in general, let's find, so I have some videos that I've been working with that are MP4s. Let's go to my folder for this class. So, for instance, I have this Benoit video of the baked beans with wrestlers, right? Love this. Take all your favorite GIFs and turn them into videos. All right, so this is already an H.264, which if I want to data mosh would be great. It only has like one iframe, and we can copy and paste P-frames and have fun with that. But if we want to be able to make it stop, flip, reverse, all this kind of manipulation, we want to make a frame every, make every frame an iframe. So I was looking at the Adobe stuff, and they're really kind of like, codecs are getting really weird. There's issues with QuickTime, there's issues with ProRes and all this kind of stuff. So I'm going back, and if you guys know something better, do let me know, but I am going to go back to an old favorite called MPEG Stream Clip, which is, I'll put a link for you to download, and it's a video conversion software. And just really simply, I'm going to show you how to convert, and if anything is below HD, all right, if anything is below 720p or 1080p, I use a codec, or the entire VJ world uses a codec called Photo JPEG, and it literally means there are no P frames. Every frame is a JPEG image, right? Much bigger in file size, but we can mitigate that with some quality settings. Okay, so I'm going to open up Benoit right here, just beans. Benoit. Okay, anyway, and we're just going to export it immediately. You could do this. You could do a batch process, right? You could take a whole bunch of these. In general, you want to make sure, like Max is going to scale things. If I have a smaller video, it's going to scale it so it looks seamless with other ones. But I'm pretty meticulous with making sure everything's the same data stream, everything's the same aspect ratio, the same pixel count, and all that kind of stuff. We're going to export it to QuickTime, and right here, there's Photo JPEG. And then, as I told you, there's going to be a much larger file size with this kind of stuff, but projection is lenient with us. So the classic is 85%, right? So this is just for anything that's less than HD. Convert it to here before you start making your VJ loops out of it. All right, so there's that. I'll convert it. It's quick. This is a short video. And there we go. That's it. That's all. Okay. So now when you start dealing with what do you want to do if you do have to do HD? What if you have a larger resolution? What if you're going to 4K and you still want to have a good video file playback? Well, then you could deal with we're going to start talking about a thing called CPU versus GPU today. And GPU does parallel processing and lets you do things more performatively. This is something that's very important when we get into things like VR and trying to hit incredibly high frame rates. So there, all these codecs, like H.264, is completely CPU playback. Okay, therefore you can bottleneck if you're talking about a lot of videos playing simultaneously and mixing with each other. But let's use this parallel processing of this GPU, the graphics processing unit, in our computers. So there's two different main flavors of this, and one is made by VDMX, which was the VJ software we talked about. It's called HAP, and HAP runs entirely on my GPU. Okay. And it comes with its own converter, so you can do bulk conversion. And you install, first of all, the codec into your computer, so you have it. I think After Effects wants to charge you like $99 if you want it to convert from After Effects, $99 if you want it for Premiere, and another $99 if you want it from Adobe Media Encoder. You can just do it with this little encoder they have for free here, and that's fine. So here's HAP. And HAP has regular HAP, Alpha if you need to keep a transparency, and then HapQ if you need to have something incredibly high resolution. There's all these different charts and graphs that show you the performance and size. So you can actually think, oh shit, I have 200 gigabytes of files and I can't make them all HapQ because I just want that storage space. So you can do the quick math, and it tells you the difference between how like everything is encoded and how it turns out in the end. Okay. So there you go. And then the other one is made by the other VJ software, Resolume, and that's called like DXV, and same exact idea. They just want you to have the best performance. I actually see more people using this one, and you don't have to use Resolume to play DXV. You don't have to have VDMX to play HAP. They work. They're just compression algorithms that are inside of a container of QuickTime. Just a QuickTime file. Yep.
I know that there's like lots of like Touch Designer, Max, all these environments have like HAP plugins. Does other DXV plugins for all these environments too?
I mean, so there were HAP plugins, but I don't think you need those anymore. In the most recent version of Jitter, I was playing with it earlier today. I know there is jit.hap. It's just a QuickTime file.
Oh, so if QuickTime on your computer like supports HAP, you don't need the special object to put it.
I would expect. I definitely know that it was a thing when HAP first came out that like Robin Mears made the jit.hap object, but I don't see it being used anymore. And I don't know Touch Designer's implementation. I'm sure that's something that we could just do an A/B test and make sure. Yeah. But it'd be interesting to see how that's evolved. Again, I haven't really done a lot of this stuff in a couple of years, and I just assumed it's much easier. So it'd be interesting just to find out and confirm. That's a really good question. But again, it is ultimately a QuickTime plugin. Now, if we're going to do a video wall, we want to have small file sizes, and we want to have a really smooth playback. We're going to go back to H.264. Like every codec has its own use cases and stuff. So let me give you a link to that. But yeah, when I send things off to like giant projection mapping things, I've never been asked for HAP. I've been asked for DXV. So I'll give you that. Cool. So let's move on. I have my little list of things I want to talk about today. We have MPEG stream clip. Let me give you a link to that real quick. And there we go. Cool. So let's jump into Cycling 74's Max. Max is now at Max 8. It has some improved OpenGL performance for Max 7. It also includes really easy MIDI mapping, which I'll show you in a second. It also includes Node, so that you can now make your Max stuff very seamlessly connect with the internet, make it reactive to real-time data. And I think that's all it's important for today. So Max is a beautiful blank canvas, right? When I first started it, it was Max 6 where there was no little frame around it. So it was like, oh, that's super intimidating. It's nothing. You know, it's like, okay, all right, I'm going to go back to school for this one. But now we have a bunch of suggestions and things, and we even have a calendar. I mean, it's got everything you need, right? So that's why I'm pointing it out, because I think it's ridiculous. I thought for sure it'd be gone by Max 8, but it's still there. So Yeah, no, yeah. Certain days it reminds you. Like, it should like connect with my like iCal. I don't know. Anyway, so everything Max can do. Well, let's oversimplify that. But most of the objects that Max has, it's a graphical interface. It's data flow software, and it connects inlets and outlets of objects. And we'll go through those by first talking about some of the different interfaces. So those graphical interfaces are buttons. All right. I'm going to point out right now that this canvas is unlocked so I can edit, right? See, I'm able to manipulate the size and the stuff. If I click the button, it's not doing anything. Down the bottom left is lock. Once it's locked, it's now an active object, okay? What you're going to see me doing out of habit is that if you hold down Control, it actually like acts like it's locked. So right now it's editable. If I hold down Control, I could do things with it, let go of Control and then do that. I'm going to be doing that for the rest of the day, so just know that it's kind of hard to tell when I'm locking and unlocking, but that's what's happening in the background. So we have buttons, we got toggles of like ones and zeros, right? And we've got numbers, right? So here's a integer number thing. There we go. If I clicked on the numbers, the down arrow, I also have floats. Right, so that's important too, to keep your decimal points, and right. And then you have beautiful sliders. Look at all these wonderful sliders. You even have a K slider, which is a keyboard. All these things. So it really, I use Max because it really helps me prototype really quickly. Here's a vertical slider. If I move to the side, it becomes a horizontal slider automatically. Right, and all these things are giving out values. What are the values they're giving out? Well, let's print to our console, and what we assume, just shout out real quick, what do you assume a toggle is going to give you? Correct, I don't know. It's going to give you a 1 or a 0, right? It's on or off. Cool?
How did you say you were turning it on and off?
By holding, you can lock it and unlock it with this little lock on the bottom left. And then you can also right click and say edit, unedit. It's also Control E. But if you want to keep it unlocked, if you manipulate objects with the control button pressed down, you can make it act like it's working. What does a button give us? It gives us a bang. So it bangs things. What does a bang mean? It just means it's execution. So if I come back here and I bang the toggle, what's it going to do? It's going to turn it off and on. So it's executing things, making things happen. That's how Max works, through bangs. Great. And then what are these numbers giving us? Well, the numbers giving us things that make sense. And then here's a slider. What's the slider giving us? See, outlet going into an inlet. It's giving us the numbers 0 through 127. These are MIDI values because the legacy of Max is from doing MIDI input, and these numbers can be, yes, 0 through 127. If you want to, though, there's a very easy way to scale using objects. Let's talk about objects. This is the bulk of what you'll be using. These are each of these objects are like little nested pieces of code, and they do very complicated things. They can do very simple things, but this is how you process stuff. This object will autocomplete for me, which is very, very helpful. And I want to scale my values. I want to scale this 0 from 127 to like from 0 to 1. I only want from 0 to 1. I want normalized data. So I'm going to type in the word scale, and yes, it completes the word scale. All right, so from 0 to 127 to 0 to 0.1, and I can zoom in for you in a second when I get done with typing. Oh, different from a Mac. So what you might not be able to see because of the resolution is that I am giving these numbers 0 and 1 a decimal point. I want to make sure that they stay basically casting them to floats. I don't want to lose that rounded number. I don't round the number and lose it. So now you see my scale is coming out, and I now have different values. What's great about Max and why I love using it in the conjunction with other software that renders is that I don't have to compile it. And you see how it's giving me suggestions for these other inputs. I can override these numbers that are in here and say, like, my high output value is right now it's 1. If I put in a float in here and change it to like 10, now the number on the right side is scaling 0 to 127 to 0 to 10. So I don't have to recompile. I can do all this stuff in real time while I'm sending data to other different pieces of software. So this is why I love this as a prototyping tool. I often remove Macs from the final installations, but I look at my data from here first. Okay. So those are objects, inlets and outlets, locking and unlocking. As we said, Mac since the early 90s has been a real-time audio software. So what a lot of people do for VJing is they do audio reactivity. So let's get my voice in here. Let's get the microphone inside of Macs. And what we're going to do is we're going to convert my analog voice into a digital signal. And that's called an analog to digital converter, an ADC. There is an object called ADC, and it has a little tilde at the end. All right, so remember, we're talking about 3 different pieces of software. Max is data flow. That's everything we've been doing so far. Tilde is our first music object, or ADC is our first music object, and the MSP part has tildes at the end of everything. Right? And in the same way, jitter will have a JIT on everything. Okay. ADC is a microphone that we could turn off and on with a toggle, but I love even more graphical interfaces, so I'm going to do what's called an EZ ADC. So it's a different, just look for it, and it's a microphone. So this is, instead of being an object that's just an ADC, I chose one that was called EZ ADC. And sometimes, and I'll alert you when, like, sometimes these things make sense, and sometimes it's just something I know. Like, it's just something you have to memorize, like being a med school student and just having to sit down and know everything. All right, so here's our audio, and you see it has 2 outlets, and it's audio channel 1 and 2. So I have stereo audio coming from this, from my microphone and my computer. But it's not turned on. I can click on it just like the other toggles, and now I'm actually sending out audio signal. But we can't see it just yet. Let's convert this to a signal data. And what I want to see is my amplitude, okay? Amplitude of audio. And here's another object that you just kind of have to know. It's called peak amplitude, or peak amp, okay? Tilde. And it can look at it every frame. That's a little bit intense for it. I don't see like something happening. If like it would look at it 1,000 times in a second if I didn't bother with it. So I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to do like 30 frames per second, like traditional video, which is 33 times a second, which is 30 milliseconds. So 33. Any number's fine. You could do anything from a 2 or higher. It will be fine. And let's now take this print. You see how I'm going to take this little tag right here and move it over there. And what do I got? I have a running list of numbers that are the amplitude of my voice. All right. I'm going to look at another different kind of slider that's called multi-slider. And at first look, it just looks like a slider. A normal slider. You see how it's moving, right? It's getting a little audio activity there. I'm going to show you another part of the interface, which is called the inspector. And the inspector has all the details. And under slider style, instead of having a thin line, let's do a line scroll. And now I have a left to right. Right? So now I'm seeing my peak amplitude over time. Cool?
Wait, what's this?
This is called multi-slider. Yeah.
How did you get the microphone?
That was a new object, so I typed in, I drug down either an object from right here, or I typed in the shortcut in for new object. Cool, so there's a multi-slider. And we see that I'm wasting half of this chart, right? There's nothing going below 0, so we can scale the data to go below 0, but that makes no sense. Let's scale the resolution of the multi-slider. The details right here, it's going from -1 to 1. Let's go from 0 to 1. So now it's better representative of the space I have there on the screen. All right? And then we can also see that I'm actually not hitting 1. And if I really want to get the most out of my most fidelity out of this, let's go back to using that idea of scaling. And what we'll do is we'll do a new scale object. And it might seem stupid, but I'm going to go from 0 to 1. Sorry, 0.0 dot 1 dot 0 dot 1 dot. So I'm keeping them floats. If I remove that dot, it would round it off to an integer for me, or cast it. So I come in here and do scale. It hasn't done anything because it's doing the same numbers to the same numbers. I'm going to bring in a float, and I want to change this high input value. And I need to see that it's. I'm going to bring it from 1. Okay, where it is now. And if I drag, not where the 1 is, because if I drag the 1, it'll be that digit. I'm going to bring it to the other side of the decimal point, and if I start dragging down, I can see that it's going to start scaling this a little bit more and reaching and being scaled for this space, right? There we go. So my values coming into my microphone are more from 0 to 0.5. I don't want to clip off the edge, so this seems pretty good for me. Cool. So we're dealing with VJing. You definitely want to get that hit, right? You want to make everything just pop as soon as something happens, but you often want to be able to see the visuals fade away. And so there's a beautiful smoothing function built into Max, and it's called slide. Okay. So I'm going to unlock my patch, and I'm going to bring in a slide. And let's talk about arguments real quick. Not like, arguments over politics, but arguments in Max are. It has 2 arguments here. One's called slide up and one's called slide down. That's those onsets and offsets, right? That's what happens is to react and what happens to trail off. The minimum is 1 millisecond, but I want to have a little decay. I want to be able to see what's happening. So let's smooth it a little bit by like 20 milliseconds at the end, and then slide that in between the objects. Okay, so now you see they trail off nicely. Maybe they even do it too much. I can, again, manipulate this in real time to adjust it. All right, let's bring this back up to 5 or 6 or whatever. I'm just going to hard code this into 10 because I know that that's a better number for me. So now I'm doing some cool stuff right there that is smooth and it's better data. Cool. So if I want to know what these things can actually do, there's a lot of help that's along with Max. I'm going to show you how to find help files and how to find built-in tutorials that are sourced from the help files. So, for instance, this peak amp object, which is something I'd never heard of before because it's something unique only to Max, is not something you'd find in normal object-oriented programming. If I come over to the left side of this object, there's a little arrow, and it gives me a context menu where I can find help. Or I think I can hit Alt and click on it. No, is it Control? Oh yeah, Alt and click on it, and it opened up a help file. And it gives me a little text about what it's doing. It's monitoring incoming signals and reports absolute values and sends it out. It's converting an actual signal data to just regular data, right? And then it lets you play it. What's cool about the help files is you can also copy and paste some of the more complicated things and just use it, so you don't have to sit around and redo everything from scratch. Okay? And then if I look at peak amp, there's some tabs here, and the more complicated an object, the more tabs we'll have. It'll show you different use cases of each of those objects. And then underneath the question mark, it will show you related objects and also built-in tutorials that show you how to use that within the context of other objects inside of the world. Cool. So I know that my numbers are, I can look at it right here after my slide. My numbers are coming in and they are hitting all the way up to, well, they're hitting 1. In fact, what I would think would be interesting is knowing every time it goes over 1, because that might be like some sort of like really spike in the audio signal. That could be like a bass or a snare or something that's like really a peak. So I want to, now this is data, let's do some math. And I can say new, and I'm going to do some math. I'm going to say if the number is greater than or equal to 0.1, and let's just monitor this with a bang. If it is true, no, that's not right, not bang, with a toggle. Bang was just seeing that there was data happening. So if it's greater than, it's going to send out a 1, and if it's less than, it goes back to 0. So now we have onset detection or beat detection built into Max, and it's all based off of how I scale these things up and down. Cool? There's also some other objects that do this automatically, but this is just, I think doing math is like the most simple thing. There's another object called F0 that does this as well. And if you want to, I'll just put this to the side. I'm going to give you these patches, and you look at the help file and see that the outlet of this. In fact, we'll put them side by side so we can see which one's more accurate for us. Again, this is like C. That's like this is programmed C, and I don't really know what the code is for doing it, so I don't know what its math is. But oh, I didn't plug it in. 1 second. Blink. Oh, because F0 doesn't take regular data. F0 takes signal data. There we go. Looks like it's all too loud. That was me riffing. So I shouldn't riff. Don't go off. I prefer my math version of this. All right, cool. So great. So the last thing I want to do with data is I want to show that you can you have all these connecting wires, but sometimes they get really messy, and you don't want to deal with sending data with all these wires. You can see how they can all connect and go crazy. So I'm going to show you a new object that's like a portal for data, and they're called send and receive. But you can have lots of send and receives, and you want to keep them distinct from each other. You want only a send from one thing to go to a receive of one thing. So you just give it a name. Doesn't matter what the name is. Just going to give it a name of Bob. Or you can give it something that's more meaningful, like amplitude data and all that kind of stuff. So if I have send Bob, I would need receive Bob. And this is important for later, but for right now, yes, this is just us getting data from data without having to worry about using patch court for everything. And this helps clean things up very, very nicely. Great, so let's start dealing with video. I've been creating a folder of all the videos I've been making this semester that is in my Dropbox, so it's synced between all my computers, and I want Max to search for that so that it knows it's part of the interface. I'm going to go over here to my options and use file preferences. And I've already done it, but I've added a path, and it's to my Dropbox for my videos for this class. So if you keep all your stuff in that hard drive that's on your USB, or if you have a different storage drive, you can connect all these different file paths, and every time Max opens up or refreshes, it'll search those and add those to its media catalog of all the things you can use. So my Benoit video that I was converting earlier is now inside of my videos. This left side is our palette of multimedia: images, videos, and audio files. In my video files, you see now I have little previews of, yes, my different video files, and there's a bunch of content that's built into Max. Most of it's pretty small, but I can also drag it directly from my folder into Max, just from my Finder or my Explorer, drag it in, and what's it going to do? It's going to create a playlist. So let's do ones without audio, because those start getting really annoying. So we'll do head nod and countdown. Oops, head nod, countdown. Let's do it again. So head nod, countdown, and Benoit. I'm going to bring them in, and I have a playlist right here. And I don't want to play inside of Max. I want it to go to like a window so I can put it full screen somewhere else. And now we're dealing with the last type of part of Max. We've done Max, we've done MSP, and now we're going to do jitter. And this one is jit.window. Again, if I give it a name, it'll name the window. So I'm going to name the window Bill. And immediately, there we have a window named Bill. And if I just connect the data from there and hit play, we have a video playing. Cool? If I hit this video is playing, and this video is playing. Okay, and there's a little loop, right? So I might want to turn those on so it loops, so it continuously plays, and it's playing on a loop. Great. Yes.
Sorry, what's the command for bringing the window, the video window up front?
In the front, so you could you say, first of all, you could double click on window and it'll bring it up front. So like if it's behind, I can't find it, I could double click on it and it comes to the front. But you can also say that it's floating and floating. So this is our first attribute that we've done. Basically it auto completes these things. I have arguments, which we've already talked about, and then it has attributes, and it gives me every single thing it could possibly do. But I know from experience that it's floating, and then no matter what I do, it's always on top. I try to cover it up and I can't. It's always the top thing and I can't lose it, right? Great. So this playlist right here, when my patcher is locked, I can actually rearrange it. Put them in a different order. That's fine. And I can add new things to it. Like, right? So now it has 4 in there, right? So you can, with it locked, you can manipulate it like that. And then I can also right click and say remove if I want to get rid of one. So this is an array. This is an array that starts with a 1, okay? And if I also give this an integer box right here, you can see I can cycle through the different videos. All right, so we're gonna send playlist some messages. So that's the last kind of argument you can give, is you can give it a message, and the message is just going to be just gonna be a number, what I was just doing before, but I want to send it in a message form. So the last type of message or thing we can use is a message box, and I have 4 here. I'm going to say 4. Oops. Many ways to do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? I can now do this and choose it. So now I'm getting close to VJing something, right? I now have mouse control over doing video output. Okay? I'm going to look at the help file for playlist, and it has a bunch of different tabs. And what I want to know is I want to dynamically always know what the length of how many I have there. I don't know what this means, but I'm just going to copy it and own it. So just like the help file says, come out the back and it'll give me the number. All right. And what was the other thing it says to do? It says get content. So this is just like starting it for the first time or getting it going. So it has a length of 4. And what I want now is that every time my beat detection happens, I want it to increment up through the numbers, and so I can start just playing a new video every time I get a new beat. Okay? So that number is, that counter is a counter. New counter. And the first argument, the option, is if I went to the help file, it's going to say going forward is 1, and going like backwards is -1, and palindroming is giving it a 2. I'm just going to I want it to go forward. And then the value I want it to go forward is how many videos I have there, right? But I want that to be dynamic. I'm going to go ahead and give it a number so that give it an established number, which is 4. I might be able, let me see if I can not give it 4. I'm going to try this real quick. Oops. New counter 1, and that's it. So it's going forward, and then I could say sets count maximum. Let's just put that there and that there. And so if I say get content It feeds a 4 into this inlet, and then every time I bang it, it'll increment up. All right, and I want to do that for my toggle. Oh, toggle just starts it. So every time I get a 1, every time it goes above a peak, I want to send out a bang. I want to only select, I don't care if it hits a 0, I just only want to select when it hits a 1. And now I can use a send and receive, or I can be messy and just drag it over here. It's a little crazy. It's not what I meant. Not what I meant, but that's fine. That's not what I meant. It's getting it a bunch of 1s. That's fine. Let's do when it selects, when it hits a 1, give me just a bang. Now it's going to do the same thing. Boom. Alright, looks like we're going to use F0. Something like that. Let's see. It's not loud enough. Do. Boo. Boo. Boop. 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 Cool. So we're getting something going on there, right? We're getting something on there, but we have all this like data that's coming in and out that's more granular. And what I want to do is I want to make that actually fade in and out. So we can actually crossfade between two videos, which we'll do if we have two playlists, so we can make it crossfade back and forth between each other. But I can use this crossfade object, which is called xfade, or jet.xfade, to fade with nothing, with black. And it has a value of, it has a attribute of how much the xfade, from 0 to 1. Okay, let's take a look at this first. Right, so at 0, it's 100% what's in the first inlet. If I add another video to it, that's the other video. All right, so let's go up to 1, and it starts transitioning to the other video, which is blackness. Right, so we have nothing for right now. Cool. But I want to make this be driven by my amplitude. So a variable in max is called $1. There we go. And let's pass through these from slide. Right, so now we're getting some sort of imagery that's fading in and out in a kind of analog manner. I would prefer it to be the exact opposite. Right, I don't want it to be, I want it to come on, I want it to pop on. Right, so I'm just going to use another scale object and go from 0 to 1, which is what the values are, and I want it to be from 1 to 0. I want to invert it. And now, if I did it right, 0 to 1, it's exact what I just did. Doo-doo-doo. Let's try it again. Scale from 0 to 1 to 1 to 0. There you go. So now we have kind of like the idea of this. So this playlist is popping on with my amplitude, right? But I could easily have another playlist that I can mix with it. And this will probably be as far as we get today, is kind of mixing the two windows together. And you can do this infinitely ad nauseum, as they say, but I want to bring in some other stuff. All my favorite ones have music on them. Let's see. There we go. Oops, wrong button. This one, this one. No, those are weird. Sure, garbage and DV ducks, and those are. So now I have a new playlist that lives right here. Let's bring it over and give ourselves some more space. I don't need this window anymore. Cool. So now I could take the same idea, bring it over here. If I hold down Alt, I can make a copy of it. And we have, how many? We have 5 in this one. Cool. I also could do a counter here, and we'll just do new, counter 1. Going in here, but we need to bang it. We need to trigger this counter, and we need to be able to see what we're doing too. So first of all, I'm going to switch real quickly to getting video from over here. Let's go ahead and make these all loop. And so now we see this new list of videos is now going out here. And we know there's 5 of them. What I want now is to see, do these buttons work? No. We only have, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a MIDI input. This is a MIDI over USB device, and this might be jumping a little bit too far because I don't have the buttons I wanted on this. I only have sliders and knobs. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this right here and map it to this knob right here very quickly, okay? So down here at the bottom, it says I can assign it to a key map, or I can assign it to a MIDI map. I'm going to do a MIDI map, and I'm going to say I want to enable this one for mapping. And then if I turn this, oh, you're not getting it? If I turn this, enable for mapping, there we go. If I turn this, it's mapped. That's new feature Max 8. That's you can't get much quicker than that, right? So I now have a MIDI device that's mapped here, and what I want to do is look at these values really quick. Put this down, put within arm's reach, and let's print out what we're looking at.
Sorry, was this function available 2 years ago?
No, this was just released. I know it used to be really hard, I know. This is how Ableton does it. That's what I wanted to show you. So this is going from 0 to 127. I want to take this one and scale it from 0 to 127 to, if you knew this, then you would be teaching. I'm just fucking with you. From 1 to 5. Okay? I'm gonna bypass this counter, and instead of doing that, I'm gonna have this number be my scale. And now my window's right here. I don't understand a float. Oh, because I don't need a float. Let's go ahead and do the opposite of what I'm trying to do and take away the decimal point so it'll cast it as an integer. So now it says it still doesn't understand a float. That's fine because it's rounding it out. Let's see. This is where I'm riffing. Oh, I don't have the word scale in there. Okay. Okay. Let's see if this works. So now I have a way to cycle through the videos, but I'm kind of like double hitting it. What I can also do is look at the inspector and change the scale here from 1 to 5. Now, let me do that. Makes me want to do 1 to 4. 0 to 127. That's fine. This gets us started for now because we're running out of, or we ran out of time. So with this X-fade thing, real quickly, I can crossfade 2 video signals, or I like to go in from black. What I want to do is one last thing before we go is use math. So we have a new object called jit.op, or you can do jit.math, right? Jit.plus or jit.minus. I want to subtract them. The blending modes of After Effects. I want to subtract them, add them, multiply them. All that kind of stuff is here as well. But ultimately, the one that gives me the most leverage is called jit.operator. I want to do math operator. If I go to the help file, everything I need to blend two video files is right here. Just going to steal it, get rid of it, bring it over, and I have the input 2 and the input 1 right here. Let's bring this in and this in, and this one out to the video, and now I'm blending different videos, right? Okay, so I have the beat detection, onset, change 1, and then I have the slider 1 that's over here as well. I must have really messed up that scale. Let me go roll that. That's fine for right now. We can just use this. So now we're scaling through these, and let's look at what these operators are. So we can have them add to each other, right, which will bloom it out. Or we can multiply them, which will blend them in without going over, right? Classic crossfade, right? The only last thing I want to really do right before we leave is, well, there's a lot of things I want to do, but let's just make it go full screen. And if this was playing a song, that would look a lot better than me just going off audio reaction from speech. That's kind of an interesting kind of idea. This window, I want to go full screen. So let's look at the help file real quick. And we wanted to just steal this. And basically what it means is that when I hit escape, it'll go full screen. And when I hit escape again, it'll leave full screen. So now we have this video thing they're able to drive in kind of real time. By hitting escape and unescape. These are super low resolution things. That's kind of on purpose for right now, and it's designed for 4:3, not 16:9. So that's it. I didn't get to the main last part I wanted to get to. That's all the special effects that we have. And we're at 9:03 seconds. Just really quickly, there's a thing called Visi that's been redone for all of Macs, and it's amazing, and it's a way of doing special effects. Everything you're doing After Effects kind of is part of this thing called Visi. If I type in VZ, it's a bunch of objects to do things like, let's look at like VZ.pixelator, VZ.pixelator. And so what these objects are just, each one is its own special effect, and you can just go through the whole list of them. Okay? And if I double click on it, it shows me what this thing is doing. So it has 3 inputs, and those inputs are bring in your video, bring in how much you want the horizontal to be pixelated, and how much you want the vertical to be pixelated. So I can use this as a reference and give it some integers. Bring my video in. Bring my video out. And then I have my horizontal and my vertical. And then I can start pixelating these, right? So now we have special effects and stuff like that. So this is the last place I want to get to, is there's a whole host of, it needs to stay positive, there's a whole host of special effects in this Visi module that I have, and it's, well, it's not working now, but they're really cool, and everything, just like After Effects, just like you just mess around with it, everything, there's like 100 effects here of all these things, and they kind of talk about what they are. They delay things. They grab your webcam. They fade. They tone map. They resample. They record. They make things time stretch, all that kind of stuff, and you could keep on just stacking them and stacking them and stacking them. So you have a playlist that has its own stack, another playlist that has its own stack of effects, and you can map all these numbers and sliders to a MIDI keyboard, and then you're just playing around with things in real time, right? So this is the kind of stuff I used to stay up late and just like mess around with, and just spend a little time just kind of getting used to the interface. I'm not expecting some sort of a crazy thing. Just play with it, have fun with it, see that anything could be anything. Audio could be video, video could be audio eventually. It's just about getting comfortable with the interface, and then we'll start doing things more on purpose next week. But I don't know why my pixelator's not doing what I wanted to do. It was doing it for a second, right? That's disappointing. You can also, if you want to have this interface in here, you can go to help file and just grab it from the internet, the help file. And then I don't need to have these floating box numbers. Oh, I think it's from 0 to 1. That's why it's from 0 to 1. Okay, it's not from here. Now it's here, my world. I can use the actual object, but these get pretty bulky after a while. So let's just do it from float to float, 0 to 1, and there we go. Okay, great. So now you can see we pixelated it. We can do that in real time and drive that. Okay, I promise I'm done. Thank you very much for staying extra, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to save this. I'm going to send it to you. Okay. All right. That's it. You guys go.
What do you expect for the demo?
Just play around with it and record it. Put some effort into it. That's all. Try to do something cool. You have all this footage you've been making. Use a song you like. And then don't forget to also share with me some other video that you think is cool, some sort of cool, if it has to be a music video, it has to be a music video, but try to do something live. Try to show me what you think is impressive in the live visual scene. Yeah.
So, I know I've been fronting in a little bit in class lately, but part of that is because I've been working on this video art piece
Oh, cool.
for the last couple weeks, which is going to be released pretty soon. Do you know Peter Burr?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I would help out Peter Burr with some YouTube stuff.
Mhm.
We worked on this. It's about a 6-minute video piece.
Mm-hmm.
Then if I show it to you.
Yeah, sure. Let's go for it.
Yeah.